And we're back with the one, the only executive director and video game industry analyst at Circana, Matt Piscatella. Again, thank you so much for this, Matt. This is such an honor to have you here, and you're such a good guest. I want you to know.
Oh, that's very kind. Right on.
It is time to talk about the elephant in the room for 2025, maybe 2026. Grand Theft Auto 6. Talk to me about, I mean, people understand the game's going to be big, but why is this such a big deal for your job?
So Grand Theft Auto 6 should be the biggest entertainment launch in U.S. history across anything. That's where the expectations set. It's one of the things that really breaks through, not just into the video game audience, but across, all media.
Sure.
When we talk to consumer, we talk to them all the time. We had a recent study we did in the fourth quarter asking people, what are your expectations for how much you're going to spend next year, what you're looking to buy? Nearly a third of the people we talked to cited that, there's a new game this year I want to get. And, Grand Theft Auto 6 is the one that's doing that. A little bit higher percentage, about 45%, said that there was new hardware this year they wanted to buy. So,
Okay.
Switch 2. It's Switch 2 in GTA 6. And, these are going to be the two things that really move the market this year. But Grand Theft Auto 6 is the one that everyone's looking at as being like, okay, this is the real deal. This is the game that could, kind of change the momentum we've had over the last couple of years.
So are you hopeful? We just talked a little bit about it with the Fortnite analogy. Do you think that we'll see that boom, that it's going to be GTA 6 drops and people are like, oh, well, I'd never bought the PS. During COVID, I bought a PlayStation 4. I bought an Xbox Series S. Now I'm going to buy an X. I'm going to buy a PlayStation 5. Is that the kind of hope we're talking about here?
I think it's an expectation.
Okay.
We saw similar behavior with EA Sports College Football 25.
Hell yeah, you did.
Well, the best-selling sports video game of all time in dollar sales at this point. It tripled the lifetime sales of NCAA Football 07 in its launch month. So this was a massive hit and actually sold boxes. This is expected to do the same, if not a lot more. Now, this market's different than it's been in past years. I don't think you could take a GTA 5 impact on sales of last gen consoles in 2013 and apply it to what's going to happen in 2025.
Sure.
I'm not going to say 26 because I refuse to believe it. But you could take some inferences there, and that's the belief. And when you look at the purchase intent, you look at just how many people are watching trailers and how many people are talking about this game all the time, then it's one of the games that makes you believe.
I want to know how much you believe. We have a question here that something gets kicked around a lot. Gary the Third super chats and says, how much does price point have to do with where we're at? Is $100 GTA 6 even an option?
That quote. Look, you don't need to price a game at $100 as a base price. What's happened over the last few years are gold editions, silver editions, deluxe editions,
the Bloodline edition. Let's go WWE. Yeah.
All of those are driving the launch sales price well above $60 or $70 already. And you're not forcing consumers into doing that. And they've received absolutely no pushback on it. So I don't know. Could they do it? They could, sure. They could do anything they wanted. Do they need to? I don't think so. But all right. Make it a little technical. I hope you don't mind.
Please.
What we have in this market now is we have a market where, especially on the console side, it's becoming a little bit older and a little bit more affluent than it had been even at the beginning of the pandemic. Okay. What we're seeing is that, people who are a little less affluent, a little younger, they're choosing things like PC and mobile more than they had in the past. These are easy access devices, and they're playing games on them that are a little bit more accessible from a cost standpoint. It's the older, more affluent folks that still have the funds and money available to really invest in these, especially in the big console games, especially at launch. So what we're seeing is very strong day one performance for big games at super premium price points, including things like collectors and deluxe and silver editions and all that. And then we're seeing extended strength at lower price points.
Okay.
But the time we're going from the very high price point to the lower price point is compressing versus what it had been in the past. Like we're seeing deals more quickly, we're seeing price drops more quickly for a lot of titles, but that's not really hurting the overall spend. So, long-winded way of saying that people who are day one buyers are more willing to spend a higher price. People who are not day one buyers just have to wait a little while. And I think that's kind of what we're going to see. But there's going to be more options for pricing, more ways to enter. And I think, we're seeing that already, whether that's, a game starting premium and going to subscription service or discounting or price drops. Like you're seeing more flexibility in the pricing approach. And that's really, I think, what we're going to continue to see going forward, except for Nintendo, because they kind of do their own thing.
Of course. I want to venture in a little deeper on what you're talking about here with household incomes in video game consoles. You had a thread that I really appreciate on Valentine's Day. It wasn't romantic. I went this way. High-income households are becoming a bigger part of the U.S. console hardware market. 49% of U.S. video game console buyers during Q4 2024 had a household income of at least $100,000 a year. This is a record high, beating the 48% seen in Q4 2021. This group accounted for only 29% of video game hardware purchases in Q1 2020. You go on. 45-plus-year-old buyers accounted for 45% of the U.S. console purchasers during Q4 2024, also a record high. Under 44-year-old buyers made up 55% of the console purchasers in the quarter, a record low. During Q1 2020, under 44s made up 69% of purchasers, with 31% being 45-plus. Console buyers, y'all are getting old, but at least you seem to be making more. So you have that going for you, which is nice. And then I like this end point. If any enthusiast board reads this and gets mad for some reason, please know that you are indeed going to live forever, and nothing in gaming is ever going to change from what you want it to be. Parentheses, which is whatever gaming was when you were 12. You're welcome. Well said.
Sorry about that.
No. That's great. That's what I'm talking about. This is why I love following you on Blue Sky. You have so many great stats and so many little jokes like that about that. This is great. People are making more money and they're choosing the right thing. Console. I love that. I'm old. I of course choose console. I just want it to work. I love it. I love that for that reason. And I love my Steam Deck, and that's a conversation for a different time. My question, when you look at the stats and you're seeing, 49% of US video game console buyers during Q4 24, at least $100,000 or more. When you're talking about GTA and you're talking about Switch 2 and you're talking about the year in general, how are you also accounting for what I would call hard times? Eggs cost a lot. Gas is still really expensive. We're about to tariff the shit out of everything. Like, we're not in a great place with the U.S. economy, and it seems like it's going to get remarkably worse. How do you then bring that into forecasting video games?
It's become much more difficult, to say the least. The known unknowns are piling up, and whether you're a fan of the administration or not, you have to admit that they love chaos.
Sure.
And from day to day, you never quite know what you're going to get. So that's part of the baked in uncertainty that we're seeing now. You're absolutely right. Things are not great all over. We have basically a split happening where, the more affluent, the more wealthy you are, we're seeing no slowdown at all in their spending. They're buying everything, and they're buying a lot. People on the, who are not quite as affluent, they're being forced to make extremely difficult choices. And those choices are getting more difficult all the time. What we've seen in the US over the last 2 years is a distinct shift in terms of the number or the percentage of a wallet, meaning, what portion of a person's income is going to different spending areas. We're seeing a distinct shift towards food and everyday spending essentials like housing, and away from what we call general merchandise categories, which are those areas of discretionary spending, things like clothing, video games, all of those beauty products, all of those things where, you have to make a decision. It's not something you have to buy. You
Sure.
can kind of choose or not to. And people are putting off purchases of things like apparel because they're being forced to spend more on things like food. Depending on what happens here, we could see that really kick in even more, which would apply a significant amount of pressure on our categories and could, really push a lot more people to those free to play, easy entry options because you just couldn't afford to do anything else. And I don't know I really don't know what's going to happen next. If anyone does, good for you. But, it's a little, it's a little scary is probably a fair way to put it.
Yeah.
Especially when you look at things like food prices and just where the dollars are going. Because people are, just need to spend there. They need to eat.
Of course.
This episode is brought to you by Built. Y'all already know I'm a big points and rewards guy, but here's a PSA for anyone who rents. If you haven't heard of Built, you're about to thank me. Earning points on rent is now a reality when you pay your rent through Built. There's no cost to join Built, and as a member, you will earn valuable points on rent and on your everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, and even the ones you haven't heard of. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world you can redeem your Built points toward. Points can also be redeemed towards a future rent payment and unique experiences that only Built members can access. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, why not? Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/kindafunny. That's joinbilt.com/kindafunny. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Joinbuilt.com/kindafunny to start earning points on your rent payments today. That's BILT. This episode's brought to you by Factor. Ready to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes, so you can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. Greg Miller's been loving how simple it is to enjoy his Factor meals as he's rushing between shows each day here at Kinda Funny. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for any active, busy lifestyle. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences on the menu each week, it's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals. Choose from preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Multiple people here at Kinda Funny have been loving their experience with Factor, and you can too. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/factorpodcast and use code FACTORPODCAST to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code FACTORPODCAST at factormeals.com/factorpodcast to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. This podcast is brought to you by Stash. Saving and investing can feel impossible, but with Stash, it's not just a reality, it's easy. Stash isn't just an investing app. It's a registered investment advisor that combines automated investing with dependable financial strategies to help you reach your goals faster. They'll provide you with personalized advice on what to invest in based on your goals, or if you want to just sit back and watch your money go to work, you can opt into their award-winning expert-managed portfolio that picks stocks for you. Stash has helped millions of Americans reach their financial goals and starts at just $3 per month. Don't let your savings sit around. Make it work harder for you. Go to get.stash.com/kindafunny to see how you can receive $25 towards your first stock purchase and to view important disclosures. That's get.stash.com/kindafunny. Paid non-client endorsements, not representative of all clients and not a guarantee. Investment advisory services offered by Stash Investments LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk. Offer is subject to T&Cs.
Yeah, I think, discretionary spending has always been a concern. I remember when COVID did pop off, and I remember, running a business that is so crowdfunded. You know what I mean? Obviously, we do ads, we do sponsorships, we do a million appearances and blah, blah, blah. But it's like Patreon, getting the membership now on YouTube and Apple and Spotify is such a core pillar of us that for me, I was like, oh man, like people are going to lose their jobs. This is what's going to happen. Blah 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 blah. I thought discretionary spending on video games. I thought people would tighten the purse strings, right? When it was actually the opposite. People were home, video games boomed, our audience boomed as well, because suddenly you didn't have that free time. And then we've seen it since then. We've already talked about on the video game front, okay, then it comes down, we've hit the ceiling, blah, blah, blah. Same thing with us. And so you get into this thing now of like not knowing what the next day is going to bring and what, 6 months from now, everybody's bank account looks like. As eggs still cost $1 gajillion, like you wonder what is going to get cut. And there was a question that went through the chat from Terrence and said, Matt, do you think video games are recession proof? Because this is something people boasted a lot, right? When it was all going south a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, Bobby Kotick said that back in 2008 when Guitar Hero was flying high, and he said it in a Forbes article, and it was wrong then, and it's wrong now. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And it turned out that Guitar Hero wasn't either.
Yeah.
It just happened to hit at the very right time. Now, is the category as susceptible to changes driven by this type of thing as other categories? You could argue not. Certain areas of spending are certainly going to be hit worse than something like video games, especially for that 16% of the audience that really loves video games. Like, people are going to choose video games when they want to escape, when they want to feel something other than what they're feeling. And so that's always going to be there. But no, not recession proof. We are, as a category, are as susceptible to changes in the macro environment as any, especially when we're in a market like we are now, where prices are going to start shifting around dramatically, perhaps even significantly. And that's going to add shocks to the market, and people are going to have to react in the ways they're going to react. We're in, I think, uncharted territory in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to see what happens, because I don't even know if anyone really fully knows what is going to come down the pipe. So, we just have to wait and see.
And this is what makes this next question impossible to answer. So I'm just looking for your prognostication on this one, right? But like, with the constant threat of tariffs and this, that, and the other, and da, do you think Nintendo is sweating that with Switch 2? Is that something would they be willing to eat the cost on and not raise from what the price point they want to, or are they just going to do it? Like, what do you think about all that?
It's tough to say. Yeah. I don't have any, inside knowledge of that. Obviously, they're doing a lot of work around it, as is everyone. I talk to publishers and retailers all the time. This has come up. The price point questions come up a lot. Like, where do we price games? How do we react? My advice that I've been giving to publishers is, if you're selling a physical good, maybe have, a little bit more on hand in your warehouse right now than you would normally otherwise have. Be sure that you're communicating to folks that you're doing everything you can to maintain availability and, to maintain a good price point. But, it's one of those things where everyone's kind of waiting to see what happens. You have your scenario plans, and you have to react, because you just never quite know what's going to happen. So I have no idea what they're going to price at. I don't know, if they even know at this point, because, a lot of these things are still happening. So it's extremely difficult to say. Hopefully it's nothing.
Yeah.
If it is something, then, everyone's going to have to react. Acer has already announced that they're lifting the prices of their PCs, driven by the tariffs on the China market. And, that's just one of those things we're going to have to ride the wave on a little bit.
I feel like with this looming threat that no one can really nail down yet, this question becomes like two timelines. But we're talking about the youth with their tablets, their PCs, the olds like me with our consoles and blah, blah, blah. A conversation that is continually happening is, how much longer will consoles be around? When I was at IGN, literally 18 years ago, we were like, oh, well, what, you probably got a PS4 generation and then it's over? Like, will it actually be able to? And we've seen such crazy success throughout. One of your Blue Sky posts, PlayStation 5 has been the bright spot for the console business in recent quarters. Interesting tidbit from today's results, and these were from February 13th. The U.S. accounted for approximately 30% of the PS4 unit sales through December 2017 and 33% of the PS5 unit sales through December 2024. PS5 is currently 7% ahead of PS4's U.S. unit sales price. What is your prediction on the future of video game consoles? And then, of course, I'd love to hear the alternate take of tariffs do roll in and things get crazy. Is this the kick in the ass to everybody going digital, going every screen's an Xbox in the same way it was in 2020 of COVID, of just play games, buy a system, you're at home, blah, blah, blah?
So if the console market itself has been relatively stable for many years, so it goes up and down. It's cyclical. New consoles come in, it goes up. Consoles get old, it goes down. It peaked in 2008. 2008 was the year that console hardware sales peaked. And ever since then, it's been a mature market.
Yeah.
So, what I think is going to happen, pending any significant shocks to the system, I think we continue to get new boxes that let people play their shiny new games on their shiny displays. I don't think that changes. What I do think changes over time is the flexibility of those devices. We are seeing diminishing returns on graphical fidelity. Going from PS1 to PS2, you could sure see it.
Oh, yeah.
Going from PS4 to PS5, a little bit more difficult, except for, the sickos in the chat that, pixel count digital foundry videos.
I need the reflections in my puddles.
I need to see the puddles.
Yeah. But generally we're seeing diminishing returns there. So what I think happens is I think, the Steam Deck and the Switch have provided a, path towards, more hybrid devices that can display excellent quality on a screen, but also be able to take in remote, all kinds of different ways of adding flexibility to those devices. But I still think people are going to want to hook up a new box to play new games on their new displays. Now, in the shorter term, if we get 50% tariffs, I don't see how that doesn't have an impact in where people decide to play, at least in the short term. But that's an extreme case, and
Sure.
And you know what? We've never seen it before, and we don't know what'll happen. But you have to imagine that people are going to adjust their spending behaviors and their patterns, given significant changes in price. Like, that's just kind of human nature. I hope we don't see it. I really do, for all kinds of reasons.
Oh, yeah.
But it would just be unfortunate.